And hello, everybody. This is indeed yet another episode of Casino Companions. All right, and as we move on here, guys, it's been a while since the last time I recorded one. Yeah, the holiday season. What can I say? Things happen. Family's busy. Don't have time to hang around and record things. And plus, of course, we didn't go to any casinos. Uh, some people have been, but we have not. So we've been hiding out at home and trying to stay away from exposure, which we've already talked in a previous episode. Are the casinos one of the safest places to go? They can be. All right, but we're not really risking it. We actually did go to a casino yesterday, in fact, during a family medical trip. We had to make a run down to Massachusetts, and weren't staying there overnight because that's impossible. But literally went into a casino and out of a casino. So I myself spent almost no time there. Basically ran in enough just to go to the bathroom and eat a little bit of food and then left. So nothing really to report. Just it was something we did. All right. So can kind of claim that I'm still a casino companion because we went near a casino. All right. So in case you're new to this, Casino Companions is a place where we're a bunch of people who go to casinos but don't really gamble. We're there to support our companions. So that is what we do. And if you want to get hold of me again, casinocompanions@gmail.com. Look me up on Facebook if you want. I don't do tons of posting up there, but if I do, it's up there. So what I want to do today, guys, again, it's been a while since we did one. So I want to talk about a couple things. So not a lot of trip planning stuff today. Instead, we're going to talk about one term. So we'll do a word of the day, and then we'll talk a little bit about investing. So because investing is on a lot of people's minds right now. So we'll come back to that in 1 second. So let's lead off with the word of the day. So word of the day is vultures. Okay, it's kind of a cool word, vultures. So vultures, what are they? Well, you can give the scientific definition. So a bird that eats dead stuff, tend to be pretty ugly in general, but they serve a purpose, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I could run on forever about their role in the biosphere, et cetera, but we're not going to, because that's not what we mean. As usual in the casino world, the term means something it means something completely different than what the actual definition in the dictionary says. So a vulture in the casino world is somebody you don't want to be confused as. All right, they're kind of the lowest class of casino patrons out there. Are they the lowest? You can argue that one. All right, but they are pretty low on the scale of people who walk into casinos. Vultures are people, makes sense. They are people, not birds, who go into casinos, and their sole purpose there is to make money. Well, that sounds like a typical casino person, actually, but their job is to go in and not so much steal, but sneak money out. But we have to be careful. They're not necessarily thieves. All right. So this is where your morality gets a little iffy. All right. Are they truly thieves? No. Are they truly moral? No. All right. Essentially, these would be the people who sneak into a casino, go in, well, they don't even have to sneak. They walk into a casino. They're not really there to gamble, all right, nor are they there to look at the sites and so forth. What they are looking for is basically unattended money, all right, because casinos are places where there is just tons of money flowing all over the place, all right. People are carrying lots of money and they're using lots of money to play their games. So there's just money all over the place. And what a vulture does is attempt to swoop in as a bird, all right, and claim some of this for themselves, all right, but without gambling, all right. They're not going to risk their money. They're just going to take other people's money, which is temporarily or perhaps permanently unattended. So essentially, they're sneaking in. They're like the people that kind of sneak in and pile into the lost and found box at your favorite school slash cafeteria slash wherever. So they pound into the lost and found box, take anything they like, all right, and then leave. All right, that's pretty much what a vulture is. Now, uh, couple things to say about vultures. Number one, this is where you as a casino companion could be mistaken by casino workers and casino patrons as a vulture, right? Why? Because you're not going into a casino to play very much, if at all, right? So you're immediately going to draw suspicion that you're not playing the games, but you're wandering around looking at things. And that's what vultures do, right? That's basically how they work, right? They walk around looking for lost property to take, right? So you could be mistaken as a vulture, all right? Um, so there's really no way around that. I mean, aside from just sitting down and gambling a lot, you're going to look suspiciously like a vulture to a lot of people. Casinos don't like vultures, all right? They really don't. So a um, typical casinos in general will often kick them out, or at the very bare minimum, they tolerate them because they want the public to come in and don't want to cause a hassle. But they don't like vultures because essentially, yeah, they're basically not gonna say scoundrels, but they're basically trying to sneak in and take people's stuff, right? So they're not exactly the favorite people in the world. So being mistaken for one could be a little iffy, and we'll come back to that in one moment. All right. So how do these guys operate? Uh, and you'll probably recognize them right away when you see one, but um, typically what they're looking for is stuff left behind by people. Usually they're looking for money, not just property. Okay. So a vulture, I mean, the obvious one, if you leave your purse sitting next to a slot machine, okay, that is straight up theft, right? I mean, if they take your purse, they're stealing it. All right. And that would be completely stupid because think about it. You're in a casino, there are cameras everywhere. So if your purse gets stolen, it is so easy for you to go to security and say, hey, my purse was stolen. I was over there and it was at this time. And they're going to have cameras that see these people and and they're going to see the faces and so forth. All right. So it's not like I mean, I'm not saying they can't get away with it, but it's really tough. All right. So if you're a criminal, don't do it. It's the place you don't want to be stealing purses. All right. So we're not really talking about stealing purses. Vultures exist more on the legal end. All right. So in this case, how does a vulture work? The answer is number one, they look for stuff left behind. Right? Money equivalents left behind. So what they be looking for? A table game chip left anywhere, okay, on the floor or left on a rack in front of a table game by a player who was either drunk or just didn't notice it and left it behind. All right, Vulture sweeps in, sits down at the seat, claims the chip, stands up, goes. All right. Now, is that okay? Well, we'll come back to that one second. All right, so um, that'd be one way of doing it. Pure cash, same thing. So cash fell out of your pocket, okay, falls on the floor, does not have your ID on it anymore. So basically, the moment it hits the floor, it's public property. Sorry, but that's reality. So a vulture can swoop in very quickly and claim it off the floor, or if you left it on a table game railing or anywhere else, that would count. So essentially, it was left behind. You weren't watching it, so the vulture can sneak in and grab it. Um, there is, and here again, I'm kind of waffling here, guys, trying not to go too far because, again, vultures are not necessarily illegal. All right. Again, they're claiming lost property. So is it illegal? Is it morally right? No, but um, they're not really thieves. So there's a difference between somebody who sits next to you at, say, a table game and starts claiming your chips as theirs. I mean, literally putting their hand over and grabbing some of your chips when you're not looking. That's a true thief. Again, horribly brazen thief doing it right in front of a bunch of cameras. All right. But that would be pure theft. And I'm also not really talking about guys at a table game who, like a craps game, which is very confusing and there's bets all over the place, who just makes a claim to a bet which is not theirs. All right. So a bet wins and they say, oh, that's mine. All right. And so hopefully doing this when the other players either distracted, the real players either distracted or drunk or otherwise not watching. Again, that's pretty much straight up theft. All right. And if you're doing that, the casinos will be perfectly in their right to haul you away and prosecute you for theft. That's not what we're talking about. Vultures, no, they're claiming property left behind. So something which does not have your ID and does not really tied to you anymore. Um, Nowadays, okay, and so that would be one way of doing it. Obviously, that doesn't really happen that often the way I've described it so far. And you're like, well, how could you survive doing that? All right. So the real way most of them do nowadays, and this has actually been true for decades, are slot machine vultures. All right. So what you do as a slot machine vulture is you go into a casino and you're looking for money that was left behind either in the machine or uh, kind of out of the machine, but not. Okay. So the way this would work now in the old days, where the slot machines actually took money, coins, all right, then they would, when you won, coins would fall down into a bin at the bottom of the machine. Well, what inevitably happened was that people would not get all the coins out of the bin. They'd miss a quarter here or a nickel there, and they'd be sitting there in the bin. So the vultures would just wander around the casino and basically just look in all the bins and claim all the change which was left behind in the bins. All right. If that sounds a little pathetic, yeah, okay, it is. All right. It's just, there's no other way to describe it. It's pretty pathetic. But, in a typical casino where there's lots of money flowing around, yeah, that could happen. Also, in the old days, the other way to do it would be to look, because you had to carry around a lot of coins. Sometimes people would leave their little cup of coins behind. Okay. They'd get up, go to a different machine, or go get something to eat, and they'd just leave their little cup of quarters or nickels sitting next to a machine. Again, the moment you walk away, it doesn't have your ID on it. So technically, it's lost property at that point. And okay, yeah, it's kind of like the same thing as it was in the bin. It's kind of, I mean, you can argue about how long you had to be gone for it to count as lost property, right? But that's essentially the other way you could have done it. All right. Nowadays, coin operated machines pretty much don't exist. All right. Uh, I can think of 2, 3 places where I've seen them over the last decade. And they're usually kept as sort of nostalgia type thing. Um, so how does a Vulture operate nowadays is that the modern slot machines punch out little paper tickets showing how much money you have left. When you say you want to cash out, you hit the button and it gives you a little paper ticket. All right. So nowadays, what does happen quite often, one second, guys, as I have to stop the recording. Da, 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 da. Of course, I'm not going to be able to. There we go. Hello. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Typical trash phone calls. Um, so nowadays, what the Vulture does is come in, or what typically happens nowadays is that a person's playing a slot machine, all right, and a typical bet might be like 40 cents to play the machine. Okay. So they're sitting there playing their 40 cent, 40 cent, 40 cent, 40 cent, and they lose. Happens all the time with slot machines. All right. But because of the way the machine pays out or the amount that they put in, it doesn't work out exactly evenly. So they might be stuck with, say, 17 cents left at the end of playing their machine. Okay. So 17 cents is not enough to bet on the machine. So a true value cheap person would cash out the 17 cents. They have a paper ticket now, which looks like a dollar bill, but has computer codes on it. So the thing, piece of paper as big as a dollar bill that says casino owes you 17 cents. And then you got to go put it into another machine, or you got to go take it to one of those cash out machines and cash them in. If you're a typical slot player, you could end up with easily 10, 15, 20 of these pieces of paper at the end of the night or whenever you're playing, that you have to go and slip into a machine, to convince to read, and the machine then adds it up and hands you a grand total of, $2 and something. All right. A lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are some people don't want to bother with it. All right. To them, it's just a pain in the neck. So they just walk away. Okay. Leaving the 17 cents on just sitting in the machine, literally, okay, as a credit. Okay. Which is cool. If you're the next person to sit on the machine, it's like, woo, I got a bonus of 17 cents. Wow. Okay. Or what will often happen is the machine eventually times out and says, okay, I've waited forever, so I'm just going to print out a ticket anyways. So it prints out a little ticket and it just sits there for 17 cents. All right. So if you're a vulture, that's what you do nowadays. You wander around the casino looking for credits on a machine which were left behind. Okay. Now, so it's either in the form of the paper tickets that were left behind by somebody who didn't want to bother to cash them in, or were just forgotten on a machine when somebody wandered off. Now, there's a possibility it could be a lot of money. I mean, the example I quoted is very typical. You see it a lot in casinos, uh, where the person just doesn't want to deal with a tiny amount of money. But there are cases where people wander away, leaving hundreds of dollars on a machine. So it's possible to hit that big literal jackpot. In their case, the vulture just wanders in, sits down in front of a machine, and says, "Oh, this must be my money now." All right. Okay. Is it legal? No, but you can understand. I mean, yes. I mean, actually, it is. You left it behind. It's not yours anymore, and it doesn't have your name on it anymore. So it's perfectly legal for them to sit down and claim that money as theirs. All right. Um, could you argue and yell and scream about it? Yeah. If it's a significant sum of money, yeah, you could probably make a case for it. They would probably say it's your fault because you were stupid and left it behind. Um, and again, there's security cams all over the place that are watching this whole thing. So it'd be pretty obvious that it wasn't their money. But again, morally, okay. Now, you can understand again why casinos don't like them. All right, because it does cause those kind of arguments and screaming and yellings, which is unpleasant to everybody. Um, now, um, that said, have I ever been a vulture? Yeah, I have. Okay. I'm admitting right up front, I've been a vulture before because I'm cheap, right? And so when I wander through a casino and I see a ticket for 17 cents sitting on a machine that's obviously not occupied, yeah, I'll pick it up. Okay. I'm a vulture. I admit it. Okay. Um, do I wander around the casino looking for them? No. Okay. But if I happen to see one, sure, I'll pick it up and cash it in. So I guess I can claim that I can't claim, to be morally superior here. Um, what I would say, guys, is that, um, well, I would say this, um, that what happens to these leftover tickets is sometimes iffy. All right. I have been to casinos where, and I actually researched it. I actually talked to security and so forth. I've been to casinos where if the casino finds the ticket, okay, that was left behind, they just destroy it. And you're like, oh, that's okay. No, it's not okay because that means that that money went to the casino, right? It went into a slot machine and it didn't come out and it just got destroyed in terms of paper form. So the casino just claimed it as theirs. Okay, that's not really okay either, right? Basically, the casino became the vulture and took the money. So if you're trying to be morally superior, all right, many casinos nowadays do either have a bin next to the cash out machines, or even in the cash out machines nowadays, there's an option where you can just toss it in there and it gets donated to a charity. All right. That's probably the morally best way to handle these situations. All right. Um, that's it. Okay. Moral question. And we should probably do a whole episode, guys, where we just talk about moral questions. Maybe I'll do that next time. Moral question. What do you do if you do find a ticket for $200 or a significant sum of money as you're wandering around the casino? Okay, my answer is I I would turn it over to security. Okay, I would always stop. I'd pick it up, but then I would walk over, find a security guy, and say, I found this over at machine X. Okay. Again, maybe, quite maybe, you're literally just helping out the casino. All right. But that's what I personally would do. I would not feel comfortable taking a giant chunk of, hundreds of dollars that was just found in a casino. I wouldn't do it. And casino would have a very good reason to be mad at you, by the way, if you did that, right? Because then you are truly a vulture, and not a nice one either. Again, if I find that 17 cents, yeah, I'm probably going to take it. All right. And I'll cash it in at some point. Um, that's just me. It's what I would probably do because I'm cheap. Uh, so yeah, it's sometimes I'm like a vulture junior. How's that? So that's where we stand. Okay. So that was word of the day. Probably talked way too long about that. But if you look around the casinos, guys, you'll find them, um, and so forth. All right. I want to close today, guys, with just talking about investing corner. So talking about investing in casino stuff. All right. Um, and, when you're talking about investing, guys, there's two ways to do it, right? On a broad scale. I mean, there's three ways. Number one is random luck. Got a great tip from the brother-in-law, so therefore I bought shares of whatever it was. That's the stupid way to do it, because your brother-in-law is totally clueless most of the time. The two other ways are, number one, look at companies, individual companies, and research them to find ones which have great financial characteristics. That's my personal way of doing it, by the way, is to find companies that really appeal to me, and which have great financials, which bring in a lot of money, et cetera. We can talk more about how to do that. And there's all kinds of online how to research stocks, but we can talk more about that later. That's personally how I would do it most of the time. There's also, though, the top-down method, where what you do is you kind of look on a broad scale and think about what's happening right now in our economy, in the world, which is going to be profitable in the future. And then you try to make an investment in that field, whatever it is, all right, to hopefully earn more money. And it's kind of that whole business of, if it's a good industry, then they all go up, more or less, uh, during a good time. Um, Casinos actually fall. I mean, okay, so I'm taking casinos as a whole, all right, broad scale, big scale. Should you invest in them? Okay, and so here you're not looking at specific companies. I'm just saying casinos in general. Should you invest in them? And the answer is, at the first broadest scale, let's think about how this industry works. And it's like, well, it's kind of obvious how it works, right? People come in, they gamble, they leave money behind. All right. And basically the casino acts as the casino is basically just a money exchanger, right? It takes money from some people, gives it to other people, and it claims a portion as it does it. So it's kind of like a bank. I think I've made that comparison before. It's kind of like a bank, just a voluntary bank, um, and you're not guaranteed to get any money out of it. But um, broad scale, I mean, that's kind of how casinos go. But if you're an investor, what I'm going to tell you is that you're looking for one or two things. You're looking for a very stable industry, so you can depend on that casino down the road to make a certain amount of profit every year. All right. And then you could buy into that casino and then you claim a certain portion of the profit every year. That's classic investing. Or you look at it and say, well, what is going to make this industry grow? What's going to make it bigger in the future? Okay. So is this just something which is just going to go away eventually? If it's going to go away eventually, you don't want to invest in it. All right. So you can talk about, carriage makers back in the 1800s. There were a lot of them that made fancy carriages for rich people and medium class and middle class people. And that's great. Do they exist anymore? Well, the ones that survived had to start making motor cars, right? Um, the ones that tried to just be traditional and just make horse-drawn carriages, they don't exist. They got wiped out. Same thing here. All right, so casinos, are they going to get wiped out? Or are they going to exist 10 years in the future, 20 years, 25 years? All right, so here's my answer. And again, as we've talked about starting back at episode 1, I am not your fiduciary. I cannot advise you how to invest your own money. All right, this is my personal opinions of, uh, in this case, casino industry in general. All right, so first off, casinos by themselves, all right, here in the United States in particular, are kind of reaching a stage of probably equilibrium, meaning there's not going to be tons of changes. Because what we've seen in the United States has been that most of the territory that can open up to casinos has opened up. There is now casino gambling in most of the states in the United States. The ones that don't have it, like my own personal home base in New Hampshire, where we have casinos nearby, all right? So they're within driving distance in other states. So there's not a lot of new territory opening up. Now, back in the 80s and the 90s, that was a thrilling time to be investing in casinos because they were opening up all over the place, all right? So basically every year or two, there was another state that was opening up gambling. That's not true anymore, okay? So you can pretty much say that, at least in the United States, we're not going to see tons and tons of more casinos being built. There will be some, as a few more states come online and a few more places open additional casinos to handle capacity. Um, so here in the United States, you could be looking at, for example, New York, the state, which is opening up gradually to more casinos. So those certainly be some casinos built there. And there are a few other places where it's very likely you'll see casinos being built. But pretty much it's going to be shuffling the decks, right? Um, the so in terms of casinos themselves, probably here that's not sounding like a great growth investment. You'd mostly be buying a casino stock in this case because you assume it's going to generate profits on a routine basis. Okay, so that's one thing I would say is expansion is not likely in terms of just new territories. Okay, so how else could things expand? Well, it could expand by attracting more people, right? All right, so attract more people. How are you going to do that? Go to your local casino and look at who's there. Who are the people playing the games? And the answer in the casino industry, traditionally, it is older people. All right, you need money to play games. Young people don't tend to have lots of money they can throw away. So casino gambling in general has always appealed to an older crowd, and that's definitely who you will see in casinos nowadays. So for modern casinos, you have to kind of look at it and say, at best, they're going to attract this younger generation. As they get older, will start going to casinos more if they follow in kind of the footsteps of their mothers and fathers. But there's fewer of them, all right? This is not the baby boomer generation anymore. There's fewer of those young people than there used to be. So on a broad scale, it's kind of, that's not looking good either, right? And is that younger crowd going to really find casinos appealing, unlike, say, their parents? Um, we can argue about that. The casinos have definitely tried to modify how they do things to appeal to a younger crowd. Talk about that some other time. Okay, so it sounds like I'm arguing against investing in casinos, and I kind of am. You have to be very careful here. Don't just run out and buy the first casino stock you see because casinos sound cool and ritzy and glamorous. That's not a reason to buy them, okay? there are a lot of factors here which are kind of arguing against them. Okay, what is the plus side? And there is actually a big plus side. All right. The major reason you want to invest in casino gambling now is for the next generation of casinos, which are not going to be these giant buildings like you see in Vegas. All right, the next generation is going to be digital. All right, it's already started, but we are currently in the rise of the digital casino. All right, this is the new thing to do, the new trend. All right, and so what we're seeing here in the United States is sort of the sweep across the countryside of sports betting. All right, state after state is approving sports betting. Okay, already in some states, like in New Jersey, which had casinos for decades, all right, you're already seeing where the gambling on the sports books, which are mostly online, is way larger than the gambling in the casinos. All right. So you're seeing that, but okay, you're mentally thinking, okay, sports betting, it's a restricted thing. Not everybody is into it. Okay, if you make it really easy and so forth, would you bet $5 on your favorite team just for fun? Okay, but how many people are going to do that routinely? I mean, it kind of sounds like how many people are likely to play the lottery all the time, but it's harder because you got to pick a team and so forth. So, okay, um, the part here you got to think about is that when they approve sports betting, they kind of implicitly also allow in online casino work, right? So many of these sports books that are online also offer casino style games. So blackjack and all these other games have their, or slot machines, they have their equivalent in the digital world, right? So you make your account for this digital casino, and now you can play all these games for real money if it's legal in your state. So to me, right now, big trend. If I'm trying to think big picture, that's kind of where I would be thinking is this casino that I'm talking about, how are they going to be able to work online, the digital world? All right. And what may be the case here, the casino, it does benefit a casino to have a what they call brick and mortar, a real casino in a state before they open their online casino. It often makes the legislator happier to know that this place that's opening up actually does exist in their state. So some of these big companies which have casinos spread across the countryside, they have an advantage, right, in terms of being able to step in and set up their digital casinos in the same states they already have other casinos, real casinos. Um, so that's definitely something to think about. Now, there's also pure online ones. You can talk about that too, and we'll probably talk about that later sometime as well. All right. So that's sort of where you need to look at. Are you comfortable talking about thinking about online gambling? Because it's essentially what we're talking about here, because that's where the money's probably coming from in the future. Now, that's here in the United States. Okay, that's trend one. The other trend you need to look at if you're thinking about casino gambling would be international. Okay, yes, the United States in general has opened up. Okay, the world has not. So there are still many places in the world where there are not true casinos. Uh, or if they do exist, they're very restricted. So the other way to play this game is to look at casino companies which offer the chance to expand into an international place, okay, which may never have had a casino before. So that's kind of like the Wild West version of casino gambling. And it goes back again to the 80s and 90s where casinos were spreading like crazy here in the United States. Um, when a new territory opens, it's just totally, craziness, right? They'll almost certainly attract a lot of people to come gamble there. All right. So that would be cool. If you're thinking that, then the current place you're probably looking at is Japan. All right. Japan is talking about opening up. If it opens, all right, Japan being Japan, it'll probably be fairly tightly regulated. So it's likely it will not be competitive even, which is even better if you're investing. If you invest with the right person and they win the lottery, not the lottery, but they win the ticket to get in to open their casino, that means they may be only one of two or three in the entire nation of Japan, which is very, very densely populated and very wealthy. Okay, so it's kind of like, and it's actually older too, which would again kind of appeal to the typical casino crowd. So yeah, that's where you're going. And we've seen this already in China, by the way, right? So China kind of opened the doors. It kind of opened its own version of Vegas, and we did see that initial explosion there. And some American companies did very well there, and they continue to do very well there in general. The COVID, of course, causing issues. All right, but those would be the two things you're looking for, guys, if you're talking big scale, big scale. We're not about individual companies right now, but big scale. If I'm looking at a casino company right now, I'm saying, okay, number one, if they're United States dominated, if they get most of their revenue from the United States, what does their online profile look like? How committed are they to moving online? Okay, to attract money that way. Okay, and if they're big, if they've already got it running, and if they're cranking it, all right, then yeah, that's a good possibility. Look at it in more detail. That's one possibility. The other possibility is how likely are they to go international? Okay. Um, so how likely are they to get into Japan or somewhere in Europe or something like that? Okay. Those would be the two things I'm looking for. Each of those have their own issues. And perhaps at some point we'll come back and talk about it. All right, guys, I blabbered on way too late, but we haven't talked to each other for a long time. So it's good to see you again. Do enjoy your coffee, enjoy your tea. Get out there, guys. Well, if you can during the COVID, but play it safe. Okay. And as always, support your companion. See you later, guys.